Welcome to the Exit Strategy, your no bullshit guide to divorce with the experienced attorneys from New Direction Family Law. Unfiltered discussions to help you move from victim to victorious and from bitter to better.
Hi, everyone. Elizabeth Stevenson with New Direction Family Law. My partner in crime over here.
Sarah Hink, that's me. We have our lovely Cam joining us today again.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and if you're watching on the YouTube videos, we're in the same outfits because we just recorded
another one. I did not get the memo today.
We're very like Christmas looking, the white and green over here. But our next topic today is custody issues when the other party, your other ex-spouse, partner, co-parent lives in another state from you, which
is becoming more the norm, really, a lot of times.
Yeah, and especially with military families, that happens too.
That's right.
But there's a lot of different dynamics that can happen from that, and it also depends on where you're starting from too.
Right. So let's start from California. Let's say mom moves here. California. I think in California they actually give you permission to move, and then you can order says you can move, and so dad's not happy with what happened, or mom's not happy with that order, and they want to change it. Here, I could just file a motion to modify, right?
It depends. The most lawyerly question. So
that was a bar question.
Yeah. So it depends on a lot of things. Where does this other parent still live?
Well, let's say that dad still lives in California.
Yeah. So you could try to register it here for modification purposes, the current order. There might be a conversation between a judge in North Carolina and a judge in California to determine which state has jurisdiction.
And what does jurisdiction mean?
That means they have the power to make a decision on this case. So they can exert their power, their law over you on your case.
Right.
So if maybe there's a state that didn't give permission and you have a custody order, say you're just living in a state like Colorado and you're married, and your spouse goes out of town for the weekend and you decide, this is my time to get away for whatever reasons. You feel abused or you just hate them and you want to go back to North Carolina where your family is. I mean, this is what we see a lot, are people returning to where their family
where
is.
Their support system is.
Exactly.
And so they do that, but they still have a court order in Colorado. So usually the jurisdiction is going to stay in Colorado.
Because you fled the jurisdiction.
You fled the jurisdiction.
Courts don't like you leaving them per se without permission.
Exactly. And it takes a while to be in one place in North Carolina, at least 6 months for North Carolina to decide whether, even take the jurisdiction at that point for a lot of cases.
Right.
But if say you leave Colorado, then the next week your spouse decides they're going to leave too, then they up and leave and go to Alaska, whatever. Then no one lives in Colorado anymore, and the court order is still in Colorado. Well, that's different. They're going to say, well, no one even lives here anymore, so North Carolina can't take jurisdiction.
Right. So I have a case sort of like that right now where they weren't married, but mom moved here because her mother was dying, and that was the premise of why Dad said, okay, you can go, it was like a newborn almost. Yeah. And then mom decided she didn't want to come back because they had just moved there. They didn't really know each other. She got pregnant, so she didn't want to stay there. So she just decided to stay here.
I like North Carolina more than my husband, basically.
Yes. So then Dad decides, okay, if you're not coming back, then I'll come to North Carolina.
Okay. Great.
So cool. But then things did not go well when he got here, and so they split up. And he could not find, he was a construction guy. He couldn't find a job, and his family's in somewhere, Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, somewhere. So he moves there. And so now, what do we do?
Sounds like we file in North Carolina.
I think so, because mom has been here 6 months, well over a year now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And then so we have the jurisdiction issues, and there's some other scenarios that can play out, but really what it comes down to is logistics after that.
Correct.
And thinking about what's best for this child and what's realistic for an infant.
Right.
Sometimes judges look at it, well, great, they're not in school yet. We'll ship them off to dad for a month at a time.
Half a month, and you can take the other half of the month.
Which I hate when they do that. I'm like, is that really best for this child, or is that just making the parents feel better?
But I did have a judge in rural county, North Carolina. Dad lived in Utah. Mom lived here. The mom got one school year. Then they went to dad, and then dad got the next school year.
That's
so they were changing
for the
schools
kids.
every year. So I don't think
It's not a math equation. It's a child. Yeah.
Correct.
Like,
So I think that there are some, if you live in two different states and you don't really get along, you're going to have lifelong problems for the most part. I have like
Yeah.
3 interstate cases right now that are like that.
yeah. And it's always sad to me because I feel like we lose sight of the children. And
Right.
the judges do too. They just
I
are trying
agree.
to like do whatever they can to get to as close as 50-50. You know, every holiday, every school break, they're going out of state. And that's just exhausting. And then the parent who's here or the parent who has the school time is just
Doing all the heavy lifting, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Like,
Yeah.
don't get any vacation time with the kids.
And
it's
you got
stressful.
a 15-year-old does not want to go to Utah
No.
for the summer. You know, all my friends, my camps, all of my sports. I mean,
Or
you
change
gotta-
schools every year.
Right. So I don't know. I don't think there's a really good answer, quite frankly.
No. And I guess that's for anyone listening that's looking at the future, and this might be in your future. Just really think about going to therapy. What can you do to work on the relationship? Because that makes it so much harder.
It does.
Because you do stand to lose a substantial amount of time with your child if there's no
Right.
substantial issues with the other parent.
Correct. And I've always wondered, I'm not a child of divorce, so I don't know how children, I think is it hard, and people can chime in on this, but is it hard for kids? How do you have a relationship with a parent 3 months out of the year, especially if
Yeah.
you're really young
Yeah.
when it happened? I have a hard time understanding that,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't know. It's got to be hard. We do need to hear from children of divorce on that one.
Yeah, write that down.
Well, I'm a child of divorce.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did
but
you experience anything like that?
well, no, not exactly. So, I lived with my dad, with my younger brother, and my dad would move for work, for a
Okay.
better job. So we moved from Washington to Greenville, and then from Greenville to Cary, and from Cary to Anger.
Oh, wow.
And so, and this is over the course of 18 years,
okay.
a long time,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And so my mom would follow.
Oh, okay.
But there would be a period of time where, usually we had just moved and she had to,
Figure her own way out there, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, later in adulthood or later in childhood, and my mom ended up practically down the street from us. And so it was very easy to have a really,
Right.
Yeah.
especially once I started driving and I
Yes.
could drive me and my brother around, we could go to whoever's house for dinner,
Right. Right.
it,
Didn't matter.
it wouldn't matter. But so there was always a little chunk of time where I just remember it being so, as a little kid, annoying, if that's the right term, to sit in the car and have to drive for 2 hours
Yeah.
and meet at a gas station in between to trade off on the weekends.
Right.
It became going to see the other parent became very much like a chore.
Yeah.
For because it was boring to sit in the car.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're
Definitely.
Right. So it's
7.
not just interstate. I'm glad you made that point. It's if you're in Wake County and somebody moves to Carteret or somebody moves to Watauga, that you got the same issue.
Right.
Not quite. You don't. But you got a 4-hour drive, or you got to put them on a
Yeah.
plane, or do something, and you're not going to have every other weekend. I will say that judges do not want to put children in the car for long periods of time, for multiple times a month or so. I will give them credit
Some
for
can
that.
think that. We'll see. get so many new judges these days. I don't know what they think half the time, because I've had recent decisions that would say otherwise. But they just put the parent, I think, before the child a lot of times, and are
think
just
so.
trying to say this is what's fair to the parents.
Fair, right?
What
Which
it
is
is,
not-
it's not best interest a lot of times. It is, and you're absolutely right about that. It's
Yeah.
what is fair, and to
And that's
the
not the
parents,
standard.
not to the child per se.
Yeah,
I
I'm
agree-
over
I
in the
agree
corner
with
saying,
that.
"Judge, that's wrong. This is the standard that you're supposed to apply." But they get the final say, and
Right, it's sort of like what they call it, splitting the baby. And,
Splitting the baby.
Yeah,
yeah, and just think about the financial issues involved in this as well, especially for
True.
the out of state, the long distance travel is, my case where I have someone in North Carolina and the other parent is in a different state. and they have to split the cost equally of the airfare, the travel for the kids to fly back and forth. And if they're not young enough to fly unaccompanied, then you have to buy your own ticket.
And that's scary in itself to put a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
Or I can't remember how old you have to be. But even a 10-year-old on a plane by themselves, I don't know that.
I've seen some pretty young kids
I don't know
flying
that I could
unaccompanied.
do that. That would scare me to death.
I have a case where, you have someone that's a teacher compared to someone that makes $200K and they're having to split it equally.
Right.
That's not financially fair. Talk about fairness.
Or if you're the person that moves, sometimes they make you bear the whole responsibility.
Yeah, they stick you with it.
Yeah.
So, it can fall into the child support area as well. Sometimes they categorize it as an extraordinary expense, but it really depends on how this happened, how this fell apart.
Right.
Like, was it military maybe where it's not their fault they have to move away, or just you both moved? Maybe you got pregnant on a fling somewhere on vacation. Who knows? But if you deliberately move from your spouse or your partner who you decided to have a baby with in location A to location B, then they might say, yeah, you're responsible for that airfare travel.
Hi there, it's Cam with New Direction Family Law. And if you find yourself facing or considering separation and divorce, you may realize that determining who gets what property can be one of the more complicated and confusing issues. It's so important that you're represented by an experienced family law attorney who knows marital property law and will advocate for your best interest. New Direction Family Law has a combined 80 years of experience protecting the rights of our clients and their assets. When an amicable arrangement can't be reached, we aggressively advocate, we support, and we educate our clients to achieve the best possible outcomes. When you're ready, schedule an initial consultation by calling 919-719-3470 on our website at newdirectionfamilylaw.com or click the link in the episode description. We've got your assets covered.
My tip of the day, if you move to another state, do not do it because you met someone and you want to have another relationship and move in with them, because there are certain factors that are going to come into play for sure. And that is not one of them that's going to be good for you.
Speak to an attorney first
before you move.
For
Really, really do that.
Yeah. And I think that happens a lot now because of, online dating. I had a case where someone wanted to move to Oregon across the country because they met someone playing Halo. I think it was Halo.
Right.
So like a gamer, and they get in the chats with each other. So
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Early in the episode, you guys mentioned getting permission to move. What does that look like? You got to go to the judge and be like, can I move?
And I've got my clients, if my clients want to move, my advice is we need to file a motion and put on the evidence and let the court make that decision. And generally what they'll say is, a lot of times, sometimes, ma'am, you can, if they don't want them to move and think this state is better, ma'am, you can move, but you're going to get every other weekend, less time. Or if you remain here, then we're going to keep doing 50-50.
Yeah.
And so then it really does fall to the person to make the decision of,
how badly do I need to move?
Right, to lose time with my kids, to move. Exactly.
And sometimes they still move.
They do. And I think that answers the question right there anyway.
Yeah.
So. Do they consider certain things, like say it was a husband abusing a spouse?
I think that's a consideration, but they look at what provides the better opportunity for children.
Yeah.
Like, income and who has the better schools? What activities are there?
So the judge is looking to be like, if let's say you were in Idaho and you're moving to Carey, the judge may be like, well, that could be a better scenario.
They do.
Right, but if you've got a 10-year-old who's always lived in Idaho, that goes on the other parent's side, because that's what they're used to. That's where their doctors are. That's where their teachers are. That's where their friends are. That's where their grandparents are, perhaps. Who knows?
Have case law here that pretty much lays out the factors that the court has to consider, the Ramirez-Barker factors. And some of it, too, is their ability to co-parent.
Correct.
Because if the parent that is moving away and wants to take the child away, have they been compliant with other court orders?
Right.
Do they ever withhold visitation?
Right.
Because if they're the parent that oftentimes withhold visitation, then the court's going to say this other parent should keep the kid because they're going to make sure you get to see them.
Right.
But if you take them, then no.
No, that's not happening.
But they look at the information and facts about the location, the schools, like you said.
The crime. I had one where person went and did the whole crime rate and all of this. I mean, really, there are a lot of factors that can fall into that, which is very interesting.
Well, and as the child of divorce, I will say I think that that's part of aside from being bored in the car, that's part of like why it worked out okay for us, because both of my parents were very committed to like making like
Correct.
communicating and making sure that my brother and I had everything that we needed, and
But that's got to be hard on, your mom in that area. She has to go find a new job. How is she going to financially support herself? If it's dad already finding a new job and that's why you're moving, that other parent has to up and do that as well. And I have had cases where a parent does make that same decision. Like, she wants to move. I agreed. I just moved too.
Right.
And kudos to that parent.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
That
I agree
is
with that.
huge that they do that.
Right. So,
Yeah. And then I know we have tons of episodes probably on emergency custody.
Right.
That also involves out-of-state moves.
Right.
But what I've been seeing lately, one of the 3 reasons you might get emergency custody is for evading the state of North Carolina, getting out of the jurisdiction. So you have a wife and a husband, they have a child, wife decides she's just going to up and take the kid to her parents in Massachusetts and doesn't plan to come back.
right.
Well, you can file emergency custody and the court will do an emergency custody order saying you need to return with the kid and give the kid back to dad within, 3 days or something like that. But what I've been seeing lately is mom in that scenario talks to an attorney, files a complaint for custody, and the next day moves to Massachusetts. And the court says, well, that's not an emergency anymore because they're
not fleeing the jurisdiction.
they filed for a
They-
custody complaint.
Yeah.
But it's so hard at that point to get that child back.
I know.
Because you don't get a court date for, 2 or 3 months.
Right.
And you might even get continued.
Right. And that's a down, like if you can't co-parent, your life's going to be a living hell because the court's not going to help you.
No.
And it's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars.
And I see this a lot with young kids, which is the worst because you have a parent who's here still and the other one moved, but I guess got away with it because they filed beforehand.
And the other parent's not going to let the other parent have them because they're afraid they won't bring them back.
And a lot of times it's infants. So they're missing like some really precious time with young children, young babies that you can't get back.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of times it is the mom that leaves and does go back to family out of state.
Well, let's don't generalize.
But I'm just saying, I'm just in that, like, it's harder, I think, when they're that young.
Oh, no,
on
I
the
agree.
other
I agree
parent.
with that. I agree.
So if you're listening, though, I guess that's one way to get around it. If you want to leave, make sure you talk to an attorney and file for custody right before you jump ship out of state, because that seems to be
The better option is to not do that before you have some conversations or whatever. Yeah.
But, I've just been disappointed lately with the court saying,
I know,
well,
I have too.
They filed, so technically it's not an emergency.
Right.
But
I
what's
agree.
the difference? What's the difference?
I don't know.
What about situations where I remember I lived in Wisconsin and I was 5 minutes from the border, like right on 94. So is that just like, oh, it's like 20 minutes away, so it's super easy to get that exception? Or is it just as difficult because it just happens to be a different state, even though it's maybe 5 minutes down the road?
The factors are still going to be the same. So.
Yeah, it probably goes down to the county and location of the county the child lived in, who would have jurisdiction and venue at that point.
Right. But if you can't if you move and you can still do your regular custody schedule, then you're cool. I mean, nobody needs to do anything unless somebody just wants to file to modify. But just because you move, if you're doing and they're not in school yet, and you may be doing a week on, week off or something. I've had that where somebody moved to Virginia, and they can continue to do that. Now we're going to have a problem when school starts.
Yeah.
But at least it kicks it down the road a little bit, and each of them get to have that, as you say, that early time, with that baby.
Yeah. Yeah, and how easy it is for people to relocate these days just makes these cases happen more.
More and more. I agree.
Yeah, but you got to think about, what's best for your child. I know that you want your child with you and you want to move, but is it removing that other parent from their life actually in their best interest?
Right. But let's say you get separated and he wasn't ordered to pay any alimony or very little alimony, and you can't afford to live in California, San Francisco.
Right.
And he's not help. What are you supposed to do? Just be homeless? I mean, at some point.
No, you got to go back to your family.
Right, exactly. And so the court may see, and that's a good factor for you, perhaps, that you didn't do it just to keep him from seeing the child. You did it because that's where your support is. And so that's a sort of a different scenario, I think, in that respect.
Well, if you can't pay alimony, then I don't know. What good is he anyways, right? Is he going to go file in court for custody? Maybe, maybe not.
I don't know.
No, I don't know. But I think the situation that we're all talking about here is that there's a huge spectrum of
Absolutely.
events that can lead to this happening.
So please go see. What I think the best advice we can give is see an attorney before you leave.
Yes.
And it may be in the state that you're in, but have a consultation with the attorney to the state where you're going also.
Yes.
So
and we
that you
tell
can get
people
both
that, too.
perspectives on that.
A lot of times when they call in, we get
Right.
the understanding of where they're located, where they're going. You know, you need to talk to an attorney in that state
Right.
too. Just, I can only advise you on North Carolina laws.
But
let's
you may
work
have
with
to
an attorney
coordinate
there.
that, and get permission perhaps, and then get here, and then we file something here,
Yeah,
or something
because
like that.
I've had phone calls with attorneys from other states where
Right.
they're reaching out to me for information because their client wants to move to North Carolina.
Right.
So I've been on that side of it too, just giving advice to another attorney in a different state.
Agreed.
Yeah. So if you want to move, you want to, move to Key West and live your life down there, but you have shared custody, talk to an attorney before you go sip some pina coladas down there.
I agree.
Ounce of prevention. It's worth a pound of pain.
A lifetime of pain.
It's an ounce of prevention. I was like, what? The rum and the pina colada? Yes.
Yes, 1 ounce at a time.
One time at a time. Ain't that some shit?
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave us a review. You can visit us online at newdirectionfamilylaw.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at the exitstrategy_podcast or email us at exitstrategy@newdirectionfamilylaw.com. We'll be back next week with more no bullshit content about life, divorce, parenting, relationships, and everything in between.